All right, hello everybody, and welcome to another video. My name is Alan, and it's that time again, so let's talk metal. Lately, I've been playing some of the classic old albums from the US metal scene in the 1980s, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to show you what things have been spinning on my turntable. Some of these you might know, and some of them you might not. A couple are a little bit obscure, so maybe you'll get to see and hear about something that you haven't seen before. That's always fun. So without further ado, first one up today is the only album released by a Texas band called Mad Hatter. Hold up the cover here so everybody can check it out. Mad Hatter recorded this one album. As I said, it came out in 1984. I think they're in the Houston area. It is a really good example of US metal from that time. 1984 was arguably the greatest year for heavy metal. A lot of classic releases came out at that time. And a lot of the stuff that came out, even from smaller bands, was really, really good. This was a little bit before thrash had completely started to dominate the heavy metal landscape in the United States. Bands hadn't become so glam obsessed at the other end of the spectrum. So you still had a lot of bands operating in that classic style championed by Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. A lot of bands were still taking their cues from that style of heavy metal. And Mad Hatter here is no exception to that. Very good album. It's got a solid production considering it was on a very tiny label called Cosmos Records. Production job is very clear. It's very punchy. It's got good energy, which helps these songs a lot. The songs are pretty short and to the point. The album has 9 tracks on it, but the running time is only 29 minutes. So you know right away just by looking at the time list that these guys were not messing around. The songs come in, they hit you fast, they do their thing, and they're on to the next song. Now, there is one little issue with the record. If you just put this on in the background while you're working or distracted, these songs can slip by very, very fast. There's only one track that even reaches the 4-minute mark. The last 3 songs on it don't even get to the 3-minute mark. So yeah, if you're not paying attention, this record will be over before you even know it has started. I like it a lot. It's the kind of style of metal that I really enjoy. And let's try something here so that maybe y'all can check it out for yourselves. Let's try a little clip from the last song, Nowhere Fast. All right, there you have a little bit of Mad Hatter. As you can hear, lots of hotshot guitar heroics all over the album. Songs are really upbeat, lots of good hooks in them. There's not much information about the band on the back cover. This was, small private pressing somewhere, very little info there. I believe it was a 3-man band, so they got a really good sound for only 3 guys playing on the record. Another good example of outstanding metal coming out of Texas. That Texas metal scene, of course, was known for putting out lots and lots of quality stuff throughout the 1980s. And I'm sure I'll visit some of that stuff in another video. But for now, I want to head north and talk about a couple of Cleveland bands, because those have been on my turntable lately. So up next today, we have Shok Paris and their debut album, Go for the Throat. This was released on the Auburn Records label. Anybody who's into US metal from the 1980s has heard of this label. While not a huge record company, they did a lot of very fine releases during the day. They always got a good sound for the bands that were on their label, so the production was always good. And the Cleveland metal scene had a lot of really great stuff happening in the early and mid 80s. That's something that I'll probably also revisit in another video. Now, with Shok Paris, when you check out the band photos on the back of the album, they can cause a little bit of concern. If you're standing in the record store trying to figure out whether you want to buy this, there's a little bit of a Wasp, Motley Crue kind of vibe given off by these pictures. And so it can make you hesitate and wonder, is this something I should buy? Is it going to be any good, or is it just going to be kind of cheeseball stuff? Well, this album is very, very good. Shok Paris has a really loud and proud sound. It's very tough sounding. The guitars have a very anthemic quality to them, lots of ringing, catchy guitar leads. They hook you really, really fast. They have a very sort of tough street vibe. We're going to go down fighting and swing until the end vibe throughout their music, which I really, really like. One thing to note that is a little bit of a catch for the band, the vocals. Vic Hicks, shown there in the center, his voice doesn't work for everybody. He's got kind of a low, gravelly voice. It kind of falls in between Dubrow from Quiet Riot and Udo from Accept. And it's a little rough or over the top for some people, which that's fair enough. Personally, I like his voice. I think it's got a lot of personality to it, and I think he does a great job on songs, including tracks like this one. Let's check out a little bit of Burn It Down. Give you a good idea of what you're in store for if you check out Shok Paris. Now, they did make a couple more albums later in the 80s. Their second album, Steel and Starlight, is also a very, very good listen. I like that one a lot too. Their third album is called Concrete Killers. I have not heard that album in a very long time. I remember it being kind of a step down from the first two, but it's been ages since I heard it. I couldn't really tell you why I had that reaction at the time. Just remember that I didn't really get into it the same way I did their first two albums. All right, one more for today. This has also been on my turntable lately, is another Cleveland band. It is the Get Tough LP by Breaker. Taking their cue from Accept with the name of the band, Breaker's also operating in that same kind of very tough, very sort of cleaned up though sounding metal from the 80s. Their vocalist, Jim Hammer, had a great voice, works really well on this kind of material. Songs on here all have their own personality, but they're also very consistent. So it's a really well put together album, yet another quality release on the Auburn record label. Let's go over here to click this and check out a little bit of the opening track, Lie to Me. I didn't have to play detective with your world. I didn't have to look for clues. The big mistake was that you chose to speak it all. Now we'll play the game, and now you're alone. Go on and tell me, let me believe. Go on now, go on, lie to me. All right, so there's a sample from Breaker. Really, really good band. They had released a single prior to making the album. It came out several years before. One of the tracks from the single is on the LP and one isn't. The band got back together and made a really killer EP in 1999 called Accept. As if you needed another hint about what one of their big influences was, yeah, they kind of kept using words and phrases from the career of Udo and bandmates. But that EP is also definitely worth checking out. Auburn put out a 2-CD reissue of the album several years ago. It's got a lot of bonus tracks and stuff on it, so that's a nice one to track down too if you're so inclined. All right, I think that's enough for today. That's what's been on my turntable. Hopefully you got to hear something that maybe is new to you. So now it's time, let's talk metal in the comments below. What do you think of these releases? Anything catch your ear that you're unfamiliar with? Any cool stories or footnotes about Breaker, Shok Paris, or Mad Hatter that other folks might like to know? Would love to hear from you and know what you think of those albums, and if you have others that you'd like to hear mentioned, maybe in a future video. But for now, let's wrap this up. Everyone take care.